Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining me for my presentation. For those of you that do not know me, my name's Sam Richardson. I am a postgraduate researcher here at Liverpool John Moores University here in the UK. Before I begin this presentation, I'd like to say thank you to my PhD supervision team that have assisted me with this particular piece of research. They are Dr. Simon Roberts, Dr. Colum Cronin, Dr. Allistair McRobert, all from Liverpool John Moores University, Dr. Vinson from the University of Worcester, and finally Chris Lee. This particular presentation, I'm going to focus on a piece of research that I've done for part of my PhD, and that research is a systematic review of sports coaches and teachers' perceptions and application of game-based and constraints-led pedagogy, a qualitative meta-study. Okay, so for this particular systematic review, it followed the standardised approach that previous systematic reviews have adopted. However, 12 electronic academic databases were searched as part of this review, using a range of different search terms affiliated to game-based, constraints-led and non-linear pedagogy. All 12 databases were searched from a period of 1982 to 2019, which is when the systematic review began. From searching all those 12 databases and from identifying the papers and then removing the duplicates, we were left with over 18,000 papers left to screen. Following a three-stage screening process, eventually 29 studies met our eligibility criteria and were therefore included in this systematic review. If we start to look at some of the results now from this systematic review, but what we begin to see is that from the 29 studies included in this review, 27 of those focused on a game-based approach. Typically, the game-based approaches that were most commonly focused on was TGfU and game sets. However, only 2 of the studies included focused on a constraints-led approach, and both of those studies were with trainee PE teachers from Australia. Out of the 29 studies included in this systematic review, 18 of those studies focused on a sample of trainee or qualified in-service PE teachers amongst the game-based approach studies, and only 9 of the studies focused on sports coaches' perceptions and application of the pedagogies. If we start to look at the results a little bit more closely in the meta-study that was conducted for part of this review, if we break down some of the findings from the meta-method analysis, what we commonly found from the 29 studies accepted in this review is typically the studies addressed invasion games, such as soccer, for example. In terms of some of the findings from the sample and sampling strategy, what we noticed was, as I say, is that purposeful sampling was most commonly administered in 13 of the studies included in this review. However, in 14 of the studies, it was unclear or not stated what their sampling strategy was. What we also start to identify from the meta-methods analysis is there was a dearth of longitudinal studies, but also 16 of the studies failed to state the duration of their particular piece of research and study that they were conducting. If we look at the meta-theory analysis, what we see from the meta-theory analysis is that theoretically constructivist and situated learning was common theoretical perspectives applied in the studies that were included in this review. But again, 13 of the studies included in this review did not state, or it was unclear what their theoretical framework was or their underpinning theory that was supporting their research. Finally, if we move on and look at the metadata analysis, what was found from the actual 29 studies that we analysed was there was 4 factors that emerged that were found to be influential in terms of influencing coaches and teachers' perceptions and application of these pedagogies. And that was the perception of learning, the pedagogical knowledge and skills, their content knowledge, and support. And what we mean by support is not just in terms of how the coaches and teachers perceive the pedagogies to support their students or players' affective, cognitive, or psychomotor domains of learning, but also the support that they received as educators in terms of helping them with their perception and application of these pedagogies. One of the things that we put together as part of this review was a concept map, and this concept map here that's presented on the screen shows you the 4 themes that were developed from the analysis of the 29 studies included in this review, and equally also the sub-themes that emerge as well. And this very much highlights a number of factors that were found to be influencing practitioners' perceptions and application of these pedagogies from the studies that we analysed. And this particular concept map not only helps hopefully highlight to us as researchers maybe areas that we need to consider when we're supporting practitioners with these pedagogies, but also start to maybe consider what areas we can conduct further research into finding out more around coaches and teachers' perceptions and application of these particular factors that were found to be influencing the perception and application of these pedagogies. Finally, it also provides a bit of a roadmap as well for where we may go in terms of supporting other educators with their perception and application of either a game-based or constraints-led approach pedagogy in some of the factors we need to consider if we're looking at educating others in improving their understanding and application of these pedagogies in their own coaching and teaching practice. Furthermore, it may also just act maybe as a reflective tool for educators. So for coaches and teachers listening, maybe this is something that you can reflect upon and consider when you're using these pedagogies in your own practice. Is there certain aspects that are highlighted here on this concept map that are influencing your perception and application of these pedagogies that perhaps you need to look at maybe analysing, scrutinising a bit further, or consulting and gaining further support with to help you in terms of your understanding and application of these in your own coaching and teaching practice. Finally, I suppose the final question is to ask, where do we go next from this systematic review? What does it provide us to help us with our future research endeavours? And I've already given some indication to that in the previous slide when I brought up the concept map. But also what was evident from this systematic review is there was a dearth of research evidence with educators that are using these pedagogies in target and striking and fielding games. So for example, maybe golf coaches, those working as cricket coaches, what are their perceptions and application of these pedagogies in their own coaching or teaching practices? Again, further research is required because there was found to be a dearth of research examining these practitioners' perceptions and application of these pedagogies. Finally, there was also a lack of research with underrepresented educators. For example, female coaches, maybe those also from ethnic minority communities, and also maybe those educators that also have a disability as well. What are their perceptions and application of these pedagogies? Again, further research would be a welcomed addition to the literature exploring these particular areas that I've mentioned. But following on from that, what we also need to look at is if we do further research exploring the areas that I've just mentioned, as well as the ones that have also been highlighted from this systematic review, we start to gain a better understanding of coaches and teachers' perceptions and application of these pedagogies. And that's really important because to effectively support any educator with their pedagogy, whether it be a game-based approach or a constraints-led approach, we need to understand their perception and application of it. And although we have research currently that provides evidence for that, we also have a lack of research in certain areas with certain educators, as I've just highlighted. Therefore, there's a need to do further research in these particular areas so we gain more of an understanding around practitioners' perceptions and application of these pedagogies. By doing that research, hopefully we can start to see how that maybe aligns or adds to the concept map that I provided in the previous slide. But also then it allows us to really highlight what areas of support practitioners require to help them with their understanding and application of these pedagogies. For example, perhaps we do some research with a golf coach and we highlight that they actually possess issues to do with the perception of learning that is affecting the perception of a game-based approach. And therefore, we need to look at conducting further research with that coach in how we can help him explore his perception of learning that could help him better align his practice to a game-based approach. But only through doing that initial research do we gain that research evidence needed to then do further studies that can help us actually support that practitioner with his understanding and application of the pedagogy. And through doing that initial research and then following on by looking at how we can support the practitioner or a group of practitioners with the pedagogy, we can then evaluate the effectiveness of that support that we've provided. And therefore, by doing that, we can then start to look at what's worked in practice, which could also be useful for other educators in the field that want to develop their perception and application of these pedagogies. So finally, if we are going to look at continuing to grow game-based and constraints-led pedagogies amongst the teaching and coaching community, it's important that further research continues in understanding coaches, teachers' perceptions and application of these pedagogies, and particularly those that are currently being underrepresented within the body of literature. And finally, we need to also then look at what type of support they require and what targeted support they need, so that can be evaluated, so therefore we start to develop effective ways we can assist coaches and teachers with their perceptions and application of game-based and constraints-led pedagogies. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I hope it's given you an insight into the systematic review that I've conducted for part of my PhD research, and also provided you with some ideas of where you can go next, maybe with future research endeavours. However, I appreciate that you may have some questions, and therefore, if you do, please do feel free to contact me. You can get me on Twitter with my Twitter handle provided here at samrichardson77, or also feel free to contact me. My email address is s.j.richardson@2018.ljmu.ac.uk. Finally, I just want to pass on the thanks again to my supervision team for all the support that they're providing me to complete this particular study. And once again, thanks very much for listening, and thank you for your time.